Hello everyone, let's continue our presentation of RadCORE 6.0. Well, let's talk now about the collapse attribute.
Okay.
RadCORE offers resources, once again reinforcing what I said from the beginning, without using HTML, all natively. It offers the ability for you to insert or create panels that can collapse, close and open, contract and expand. Let's take a look at how the parameter, the collapse attribute, currently works, and let's see what's new in version 6.0.
Ok? Então, ó, vamos
Let's open RadCORE here. I'll open my customer record here. I'll make an edit here. In fact, I didn't even need to make an edit. I'll just click, and you'll see here that I have some cards, some panels, that they can be contracted. And this, in a way, helps the user to visualize at that moment only what he wants. Then I can close my cards and expand only the one I want to work on at that moment. So you notice that when we close it, it is exactly occupying just the title track.
Tá certo?
So how does the hardcode breakdown work? So I'm going to open my customer record here. Let's go here to our item here. So you will see that I have here block. This block of mine is exactly 42 pixels tall. And here we have what makes all the magic of the collapse feature. It's simply label. It's unilabel. So what's special about this unilabel? Let's open RC element and see what attributes it has. Attribute only. So the entire collapse rendering process is summarized in just this attribute. So how does it work? You will pass the collapse attribute. You say which component you want to contract and expand. In this case, I'm saying here that I want to contract and expand the RC block 2, and I want to keep it off. This off would be offset, precisely because it is the difference when it is closed, the limit for it to close, of 42 pixels. So just this pseudo command, this RadCORE attribute, does all the rendering magic of your panel. So I have this component here, which is RC block 2. So this guy here is going to be rendered when you run RadCORE. He's rendered. Okay, on the little arrow, this little arrow automatically changes position. You will notice that there's no event linked to this label, so it's all dynamic. Everything RadCORE will provide for you without coding, without using HTML, without using CSS. So productivity is very high with all the resources that RadCORE offers you. So now let's talk about what's new he's bringing. The new parameter of parent. Now you can enter parent or the name of another object to assign its respective height to the collapse. So what do we mean by this? So what we have here explicitly, where I put it explicitly, off 42, I just put it now, parent, okay? So automatically by doing this, I no longer need to know what the height of this component is, which will be the limit of my collapse, because I can collapse at any time. My card can be bigger, it can be smaller, and then you won't be worried about its explicit height. So just put off parent, okay? That the hardcore will know that it is the parent of this label component where it is positioned, and then it will automatically capture the height of this guy here, of this component, and will execute the collapse process.
Ok?
The other feature that is now coming to Hardcore 6 for the collapse was a tip from a user from Italy, Andres. He had the following situation. He had the focus sequence between the edits. He presses enter, 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 and when the focus fell on a component that was collapsing, it generated an unpleasant visual effect.
Tá?
More or less, this is what happened. So now what are we going to do? You see that I have my block here below. It is closed. I'm going to position myself here in my last field of the previous block. And now I'm going to enter editing. Sorry, guys. I'm going to enter editing. So now I'm positioned in my last previous block, and I'm going to hit enter.
Tá, ó. Então,
Then it automatically comes, it will focus on the next component, and as it was inside the collapse, it automatically expanded our collapse.
ok?
So these are the new features linked to the collapse attribute. Well, with Hardcore 6, we're also bringing several new attributes.
Tá?
So I'm not going to talk about everyone here either. Okay? So as I explained at the beginning, if I also talk about everything we have here, the videos will be very, very long. Okay? So let's go. I'm going to talk about the bind attribute here. Okay? I'm going to skip this one and talk about bind. So what is the bind attribute? We have hardcore versions in which you can use resources with a database, that is with DBware components, or versions of low-code, hardcode projects that do not have any type of connection to the database. That is, they're examples of applications with low code, with login, with menu, with everything. But you are free to insert your connections with the bank, if you're going to use Faridac, Unidac, MyDac, Zeus, if you're going to use an API like ROS, HashDataWare, DMVC. Okay? Ream object, data abstract, whatever you want to use with hardcore.
Tá? Bom, então,
So what will bind give us? Users who do not use DBware components will now be able to create screens in which these fields will be filled in automatically.
tá? Vamos,
Let's take a quick look here at the new example that will be coming here with hardcore.
tá?
I'll have this example here where I simply have a grid, edit button. It's a very simple thing, guys. So here I have an edit button where I have examples of fields with integer data, with string data, with float data. I have data fields, I have a checkbox, I have a radio group, I have a combo box, and I have an example of dynamic lookup, which is a very special subject that we will talk about later.
Tá? Então,
So you can see that the only component that is dataware is the dynamic lookup, but it has no link to the local database. All of this here will be processed dynamically. The other components you will notice are all non-DBware components. So I have unedit, uniformated dnumber edit, unidate time picker, unicheckbox. That is, they are not DBUE components.
ok?
So what will be the magic of hardcode?
Tá, ó. Então,
You will see that I don't have in my application, in my edit button, the only thing I will have here will be my new RC dynamic bind function. So I will call the dynamic bind function, pass what my form is, my current frame, and that's it.
tá?
The hardcore goes through the dynamic attributes that each field will contain. You will notice here that I will have my bind attribute, and I say that I want to bind with the code field using the data source ds data query, which is right here.
Tá certo? Então,
each of these components will have the bind attribute, the field that will be used, and who is my data source. So this data source can be the main table, it can be a virtual table, taking local data, taking data from JSON. You will feel free to do what you need.
tá?
Once the data is loaded in this query, in this main table, which has a data source linked to it, bind will extract the information and automatically fill in the content of all the fields on your screen. So you imagine that whoever works today with components that are not data-aware, they have to create some way of filling them in, associating them.
Oh.
The simplest example would be, I have a component like rcdit200. I will put rcdit200.text equal to a SQL data query.field by name and the name of the field that I want to associate. So you imagine a form with 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, many more fields in which you need to load the data into these components manually. So all this now, the code reduction will be huge using the hardcore dynamic bind. So let's go to the practical example. So let's close our customer screen here. Let's open our mega demos folder. Let's see layouts with data here, and then I'll have a dynamic data bind here. So I'm going to open my screen here. So a very simple example. I loaded a query inside my screen, and I'm going to click here on Edit. So you see when you clicked on Edit, it simply took all the data there, checked what was marked as an individual, legal entity, whether it was active or not active. The same individual field is configured for a group network, configured for a combo box, okay? A data, everything fine, okay? So you now have this new option to go hardcore with this feature.
Certo.
I'm going to get the contract value here. I'm going to edit it, and it automatically pulls all the data.
Certo.
Here it changed to a legal entity.
Ok?
Guys, fantastic resource, another very welcome resource to use within your applications with hardcore, okay? Well, I would like to finish this video at this point. There's much more for us to talk about. New videos will be coming. The next video will be special. We will specifically address the dynamic lookup and all the news, which is one of the best resources that RadCORE has to offer today, which is bringing several new features. Big hug to everyone, and see you in the next video.